Despite the improvements made by the defense, this Falcons all-in gamble this year may cost the front office their jobs. Is a total rebuild inevitable?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the galaxy. I'm your humble host, Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP. Still going strong on this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. In today's episode, we're talking about the Falcons all-in bet, trading that future first-round pick, of course, for James Pearce, and how it's gone wrong and who's going to be tasked with the recovery/rebuild. We'll talk about the steps the defense has taken with James Pearce and others, but do we need to see more? The looming quarterback quandary surrounding their need for a bridge quarterback and Michael Penix's future, all with Charles McDonald of Yahoo Sports in the Football 301 podcast, a long-suffering Falcon fan just like you and I. And today's Locked On Falcons is also brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So let's jump into that conversation with Charles McDonald of Yahoo Sports right now. Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast. I am joined by Yahoo Sports Football 301 podcast co-host Charles McDonald. And yes, as I always do when Charles comes back on this podcast, I claim all credit for his success because of his start here on the Falcons Fans podcast way back in 2015, talking about Vic Beasley versus Shane Ray versus Dante Fowler.
I got a gray hair now. For watching this, I got a big old gray hair.
Yeah, I got one. People comment on it a bunch. I got like a couple growing in. The Falcons have aged us.
Hell yeah, they have.
But we're talking about the future of the Falcons, as this season did not go the way that they expected it. We'll talk about that a little bit later when it comes to the whole James Pearce trade, because we talked with Charles back in May about some of the concerns about their draft haul and liking the players, but being concerned about the Falcons maybe being a little bit too overconfident that this season was going to turn out a certain way, and that confidence is kind of blown up in their face, and ultimately it could result in people getting fired at the end of the season. And so, Charles, that's the sort of the will they, won't they of will they bring back Raheem Morris as the head coach, Terry Fontenot as GM, and we'll see how that plays out over the next 3 games. But I just want to ask you, in a world where they do decide to run it back with those guys, is there a path where you could see it working out next year in their favor?
Oh, man. Probably not. I mean, just going to keep it real. Well, I mean, because I'm not on Twitter anymore. So, like, the only time, and Elon made it really difficult to, like, if someone sends me a tweet, he made it difficult. Like, if you're not logged in, you can't really see anything. So, my Twitter use and looking at it is almost zero. So, I've been looking at a lot of like Reddit and Blue Sky stuff and comments on other websites. And I've been surprised at how many people are like kind of cool with the idea of at least running it back from a Terry Fontenot standpoint. Bro, this is 5 years, like 5 years of this. And it's not like they're even going to win more games than they have in the past. This has been, 7-8 win team every single year for 5 years. I don't really understand the defense of him coming back, and I understand that. I understand being excited about like what Walker and Pierce have done this year, especially like this is where I'm willing to be forgiving for some fans, because especially within the context of the Falcons, I mean, dude, the fact that they're gonna hit 50 sacks this year is a goddamn miracle. Because we've watched recent seasons where they failed to hit 20. So I understand like why you'd be excited about that, but hey, they're still not winning these games. And I think one of the biggest problems, especially with the defense, and I guess it's kind of like some of the 2010s teams that they had without the great quarterback play from Matt Ryan, where you're really top heavy and your good players are really good. but once you get past like that wave, it falls off quickly. I mean, for them to still be in the same spot where it's been 5 years, they haven't made like a real investment at CB2. That's still a problem mark for them, even though like D Alfred has improved. The interior is still pretty weak. Like the Colts game to me is the textbook case why like you need to clean house, because you still had the game where you sacked Daniel Jones 7 times. And at no point did it really feel like they could stop the Colts offense because they ran for 300 yards. And if you're going to get bulldozed off the field, hopefully that's the easiest way to play football. We're not going to let you rush the passer. We're just going to get after your 240-pound edge rushers and blow them off the ball. So they still got work to do. It's been a step in the right direction. I'll give them that, but you can't come back from this because this was your all-in season. Like, this is where the assets are. This is where the cap space is. This is where the draft picks are. They're on this team, and you're 5-9. No, you can't come back from that. So I think they need to clean house. Next year, next year's because the tough part is I think you have to know like this team's probably gonna be worse next year because they don't have the first round pick, they don't have great cap assets, and they still haven't dealt with the Kirk Cousins situation. So, to be honest with you, I stopped watching games after Penix got hurt because I was like, what am I here for? There's no pick, there's no quarterback, there's no cap space. I didn't watch the game actually until last Thursday when our friend Alex Derrick, he came over to watch that Bucks win. So that was fun, but man, you just got to clean house and let whoever comes in next year just assess the roster with fresh eyes. They really need to do that. I mean, if you think about it, you're still kind of running an extension of the Dan Quinn regime because Raheem and Jeff were here last time they were there. So it's frustrating. And I'm trying not to be like too doomer about it, but boy, you better get that 2027 first round pick right, or else I might be 40 before you ever win a winning season again.
Yeah. I hear you on that, Charles. It's like there's a path where it's like, okay, maybe they could switch up the coaching staff, maybe with Raheem and, bring in an advisor for Zach Robinson to teach him how to run a better version of the offense. Obviously, you build off of the defensive success that Jeff Ulbrich has. We'll probably touch upon that a little bit later. Like, Jeff Ulbrich, to me, has coached his off this season in terms of getting this group to being basically a league average defense, given some of the weaknesses they have on that side of the ball. And I'll own that in the sense of I did not have that type of optimism for that type of defensive turnaround going into the season, and certainly question that higher. And so you're kind of hoping that you can do something similar to the offense next year, but like there's nothing that they've given you so far that makes you feel any sort of confidence that they can pull that off. And you talked about it sort of being the all-in year where, like, I remember this time last year when everybody was basically clamoring for Terry Fontenot to get fired after 4 losing seasons. And I was like, look, I want to give Terry one last chance to see if he can dig himself out of the hole. And he kind of dug himself deeper into the hole. It's like the only way out is down. And it's like, I don't think that's how it works, Terry. And so, like, at this point in time, I think you have to get a clean slate. But I think you mentioned it where if you bring in a new regime, you can't hold them to this, well, you got to win with what Terry and Raheem and to a lesser extent Arthur Smith built. You kind of have to give those people the runway to kind of, if they need to, blow it up, potentially blow it up in certain ways, because there just seems to be so much work to do with the quarterback position. You're going to have to probably rebuild your offensive line. You're going to have so many offensive skill players in the future, because it's basically Bijan and Drake, and then I don't know after that point who else are you going to really tie yourself to. And then even though the defense has again exceeded expectations, there's still a lot of pieces that you got to add to that side of the ball. And so you're not really looking at another year where it's just like, okay, well, we just add this one thing that's going to push us over the hump, how they've operated for the last 3 to 5 plus years. So let's keep the conversation going with Charles McDonald of Yahoo Sports, discussing how good this defense is right now. And even though they still have a ways to go, they're off to a good start. And we'll continue that here on today's Locked On Falcons. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Of course, the holiday season, budgets get out of control, spending gets out of control. And if you want to take more control of your finances this holiday season, or potentially start out 2026 on a better foot. Rocket Money is going to do the heavy lifting for you so that you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money is going to help find subscriptions that you forgot you had and you're paying for, and it's going to help you clean them up quickly. You can also build a budget. You'll get bill alerts. You'll get spending notifications. Rocket Money is going to keep an eye on your wallet and, again, do that heavy lifting for you, which is all going to be much less stress on you as we get through this holiday season. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Now, have your health or family needs changed lately? Well, Georgia's got you covered. Georgia Access is our state's marketplace for Georgians to compare, apply, and enroll in health insurance plans that offer the best value for their individual needs. Open enrollment is happening right now. Visit georgiaaccess.gov today. Georgia Access, health insurance for Georgia by Georgia. So thanks to our everydayers. You are the reason why Locked On is the #1 sports podcast network in the galaxy. But since you already live by the mantra, your team every day, level up with an ad-free version of Locked On Falcons by joining the Everydayer Club with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more. Just for $5 a month or $50 a year, you can get access to that. Find out more information by hitting the link in the description below or at lockedonfalcons.supercast.com.
Yeah, I look, this is going to be really popular, and I'm sure that people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but I think you need to be prepared for the defense to get worse next year from where they are. Because this is very triggering. They're Vic Beasley they are kind of Vic Beasley on defense as far as their sacks go. They're actually just a league average team in terms of pressure rate. Getting 35, getting pressure, according to PFF, about 38% of opposing dropbacks, 15th in the league. By far, #1 in pressure to sack rate, which is what Vic Beasley was doing back in 2016, where, wasn't getting like all that much pressure, but when he did get pressure, he was getting home. They're also first in sack fumbles with 6, third in sack rate at 10%. So, like, the fact that you're only getting pressure in league average rate, but you're getting that many sacks, suggests you still need to like keep improving and add like serious pieces to that defensive line, because if you kind of stay stagnant there, now you're just putting a lot on guys who, they were getting pressure at average rate, and to expect that to kind of repeat year over year is not really something that happens, as we saw ourselves with Vic Beasley. Also, that game against the Vikings from week 2, it was so bad for the Vikings. Like, it's still like pulling up the Falcons defensive stats, even, 4 months later. So if you just go back and like pull their whole season and just pull out that week 2 game, where JJ McCarthy, to me, I thought he was dead, looked a little bit better the last 2 weeks, but just whole season without week 2, 24th in points per drive, 24th in turnovers, 26th in three and out rate, 27th in rushing defense, 25th in overall success rate on offense. So it's still not really a good defense, and you can see like they've had moments where they give up a lot of points this year. So this was the fear, right? Like, okay, you make the trade for James Pearce, and he's had a pretty good rookie year. I still have questions about like what's next for him, because it's a lot of bad tackles that we're beating up on, but at least he's beating the bad ones, which is something they weren't doing. So it is an improvement. But now you're looking at sending like a top 10 pick to the Rams, most likely. You could really use that. You could really, really use that right now, like maybe on a quarterback. And I've also seen people say, well, and this is just cope, or you don't watch college football, but the idea that there's no defensive end that the Falcons could have picked in 2026 that's better than James Pearce. I don't think that that's true, honestly. Like, Ruben Bain's pretty good. Kelby Falk's really good. Those guys are NFL-ready bodies. But not having that first-round pick, it kind of, especially at this point in like their roster building journey, is huge, because that's the cheap asset that they need that they won't be able to get. So yeah, I don't know. 2026, I would just put, like, if I'm Bijan, just fake an injury, bro. Or Arthur Blank, like, just say Bijan towards Achilles in the offseason, and he's gonna be hiding out in the Bahamas until we get the 2027 first round pick, which I'm gonna guess here on December 16th, 2025. I'm going to guess that 2027 first round pick is in the top 3. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. I've been joking with people that, they just sign someone like Brian Robertson Jr. and give him like 300 carries just so that we can get Bijan healthy through the 2026 season.
Yes.
When we need him in 2027. And
sign a crash dummy. Just sign a crash dummy.
I'm looking forward to that 2 yards in a cloud of dust run game with Brian Robinson Jr. or Cam Akers or whoever it is, just anybody who could just eat carries because we do not need Bijan to deal with a Bijan injury because next year, the team is going to be bad and they're just going to basically just force feed him the rock 400 times or whatever and whatnot. But you mentioned the James Pearce trade. Again, going back, listening to that episode we did back in May earlier today, just to kind of refresh the memory. And you liked James Pearce as a prospect. You didn't like what the Falcons gave up. That was the general trend of the draft. Like, you liked the haul of players. You didn't like how the Falcons overpaid to get that because you spoke on the delusion or the hubris or whatever you want to call it with the Falcons basically believing that like this is all we need to get over the hump. And as you stated, we sit here 5-9 and there feels like there's a lot of work to be done. But when you look back at that trade, you look back at this draft class again, like we've been pretty down on the Falcons. Let's try to be positive about this defense and Jalon Walker, playing really, really good football until like the quad injury or whatever the injury, the other the fifth soft tissue injury he's had this season sort of slowed him down the last couple of weeks. But you're still seeing flashes of brilliance from him. Obviously, James Pearce has been on a tear these last couple of weeks, and I really like the growth that he's shown in development as a pass rusher. So it does feel like even though some of these numbers may be a little Beasley-esque in terms of the team overall, it does feel like he's at least on the trajectory early on in his career that you like. Obviously, Xavier Watts has been a playmaker for them and a really solid piece. Billy Bowman gave him something before his Achilles injury, but that's going to potentially derail his return in 2027. I liked what I saw from Kobe Bryant, even though he was getting cooked by Mike Evans this past Thursday night. There's something there with this defensive group that, you're seeing Dorless come on strong. Ruka Roro is doing all right. Like, he's not going to live up to that draft pick, but
he's an NFL player.
That's a good way to put it. He's not going to live up to that draft pick, but he's a contributor. And so, we'll see what happens with Braylon Trice and whatnot. But like you have some solid pieces to a defense, and it's like, as the Falcons figure out whatever they do on offense, you do feel good about, if you can continue to add to this defense for the next couple of years. Like this is going to be my big beef, Charles, because it's like the Falcons will take a step forward and be like, oh, we solved it, and then not address it anymore and then just ignore it for 2 years. And it's like, if you just keep plugging away at this defense, I really do think for once here as Falcon fans, we might actually have a good defense in the near future.
Yeah, everything I say, like I said before, is more in the context of like, that's why you don't make that trade, because you're just not ready to make that trade. But like the pieces that they have, like it's the most promising the defense has been. This is sad. What, like 20 years maybe? I don't know, like when Patrick Kearney was here and those boys. Because like the Abraham defense, that was just John. And like, Brent Grimes every once in a while, you get a crazy interception, but like those weren't actually good defense. They were bend don't break. Like this has the potential to be good. Like because my criticism of the Falcons this year, like as far as their strategy was like, because like I said, I liked all 4 players. Like in a vacuum, I think where they took James Pearce is the right range. I mean, if someone's playing about half the snaps, can be a pass rush specialist, and you'll see what happens in the future. That's a good starting point. It was just the price for it. And also, I thought that they way overestimated like the spine of their defense. Like you can't give up as many rushing yards or be as weak as against the run as they were, and then add 2 undersized front 7 players and 2 safeties, even though those guys are good players, and expect like things to actually change for you. Because like I said, the Colts game, Daniel Jones had a tough time, but ultimately they could just turn around in the second half and just rip off 6, 7, 8 80-yard chunks with Jonathan Taylor, and no team is ever going to deviate from that strategy if they can just turn around, hand the ball off, and get 6 yards at a time. It's like the most risk-free way to play football that every single coach in the world would love to play. So you're still giving teams an easy out. But you're right. The floor for this defense is high, man. Like but you got to keep plugging away at it. Got to keep adding secondary talent, keep adding interior talent, and hope that whoever is running this defense next year has I guess a good grasp on what their weaknesses are, because they're still not the most stout unit, but they can really get after you, which is something they haven't had in a really long time. So I understand why people are excited. I'm just like, damn. I just hope that this doesn't kind of fizzle out before they can continue adding resources to it. And quite frankly, like next year, you need to nail every single move that you make, because you're working with so few resources. I'm looking at their their cap table for next year on Spot Track. They got projected to be 24th in cap space with roughly $11 million, and you'll be able to mess around with some of that, but Kirk Cousins is not going to be the cheapest guy to move on from. Still got some other big contracts, so your free agent signing probably is going to be a little limited again. You don't have that first round pick, so every move you make, there's an accentuated purpose to it, which doesn't really feel good. There's no wiggle room for error, or else we're going to be having Shador or Arch Manning debates next December.
Yeah, this is the normal part where I'll just pile on Terry Fontenot, but I'm just going to move on. I'm going to be the better person, Charles, and I'm going to move on and talk about the Falcons offense. So we're going to continue picking Charles's brain on Michael Penix's performance this season, whether or not the Falcons should continue to run it back with him in 2026, or do they need to start positioning themselves to pivot towards acquiring a new franchise quarterback beginning in 2027. And we'll do that to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Now, today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Since NFL Sundays move so fast, you can feel like one big play completely changes the game, and FanDuel is going to be the place where you can place live bets to stay in the action every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment, because FanDuel is going to give you those live updates as a receiver gets hot and the live spreads and money lines adjust. The player props go up and down. You can bet the next thing that you think is going to happen, who's going to score the next touchdown, what's going to be the next drive result. It's all there for you at FanDuel. And if you want to bet this upcoming Falcons-Cardinals game, you can find those odds as well. The Falcons remain road favorites, 2.5 points on the road against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 16. So go check it out by visiting FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. You look at Michael Penix's season, he didn't quite live up to the hype, as often is the case with the first-year starting quarterback. There's so much hype with these guys. It was an up and down first year as a starter. Then obviously you have the injury. And, I know one of the things we talked about in that May episode was you talked about how sort of the Falcons were clearing the runway for Michael Penix to go through whatever his issues were going to be this upcoming season. And now he's dealing with that ACL injury. We'll see what the timeline is for him to come back. But, it's not looking super optimistic that he'll be the starter week 1. So you got to bring in a bridge guy. But the question I want to ask you is, do you just bring in a Tyrod Taylor type of guy, low end, sort of competent starter / high end backup for cheap, hopefully, to counter the Kirk Cousins situation? And do you just give 2020? Is 2026 still a runway season for Michael Penix to come off of that ACL injury, or is there, for me, I just kind of feel like you kind of need to position yourself to be able to get a quarterback in 2027 if Penix doesn't have the bounce back that you want to have. And those issues, I feel like those ideas of let's clear the floor for Michael Penix, but also I don't know if you can balance that. Do you get what I'm saying?
I don't think you can clear the floor for him. I mean, he's going to have to come and compete, because the truth is, he wasn't very good this year. What's unfortunate is the game where he got hurt against Carolina. That was his best game of the season, where I thought it was starting to come together, and then he gets hurt, and at this point, you just have to deal with the truth of the matter. This is his third ACL tear, his fifth season-ending injury in like the last 7 years. I mean, realistically, I think you have to put yourself, if whoever's running the team next year, you have to put yourselves in their shoes. Would you risk like your livelihood for someone who hasn't proven in any capacity that they can stay on the field outside of that, that magical Washington season? And when he was on the field, like it was real up and down. Like you would have, like what was so frustrating to me was it was never like game. It was never like within the course of the game. It was either like good game or bad game, good game or bad game. In the bad games, man, like in that Colts game, I cut up. I didn't really post it anywhere because the more I went through it, it was just kind of sad. Like I felt like 15 throws that probably could have been made that just sailed nowhere close to anyone. That ultimately, that's just not acceptable for an NFL quarterback. And I definitely think that there's room for Zach Robinson to improve as a play caller for sure. But two things: one, stop blaming the OC when there's like no pressure, wide open throws that get airmailed. How is that an OC problem? That everyone else is doing their job except for one player on the field at that point. And it's not a big deal to call it out. I mean, these guys, the owners, they won the wage war. Like they beat the union to submission. You can just go get a new one. Normally, if you're a cap healthy team, unlike the Falcons, you can just go get another one. Just draft another one. If I was the Vikings and they lose out, I would just draft like transfer Mendoza or Dante Moore. You're going to be in the top 10 anyway, so draft another one. The Patriots have shown us it doesn't matter. The Cardinals show us it really doesn't matter. The Jets have shown us it doesn't matter. Just get another one. But unfortunately, they don't have a first round pick. So like the idea that anyone can say with any certainty like what he's going to look like next year, I think is crazy. Which is why you should get some backup or get a real competition option, because the fact that you don't know means that you need to prepare. So I don't know what you can do. What you said, Tyrod Taylor, man. That would be a lot more exciting like 8 years ago.
See, Charles, Tyrod is the perfect blend of like competent but like not good to the point where like we're gonna be picking the top 5 if Tyrod's our starter for the season.
And look, I've watched some Tyrod this season for the Jets. Yeah, I think next season that could be the one where it's like, nope, time to call it, buddy. Time to call it. Time to call it. You gifted us a top, Charles. All part of the plan. And I also think if you're looking at Penix just from this standpoint, like he was, you saw, and this is extreme. You saw with Philip Rivers this weekend. Basically, the only thing that made him a viable like product or a viable option for them to move the ball was he has just played so much football that they just ran at like a cleaner operation level than they had with with Daniel Jones in recent weeks or Riley Leonard. I mean, he knows a lot about the game. So even when the balls are wobbling out there, they're coming out like on time in a way where you can like kind of move the ball in the best defense in the league. Because athletically he's diminished from where he was 5 years ago. And I think you should just expect someone with this much damage to their knees to be athletically limited from where they have been in the past, which is kind of a scary thought. Because I know it said 4.44 on that 40-yard dash, but I think we've seen enough in game at the NFL level to know he is absolutely not a 4.4 guy running the ball, and doesn't really seem to want to run the ball, which I don't really care about as much as if he can be more accurate. But the point is, if he's going to be a diminished athletic product, then he has to be like mentally and he has to be mentally sharper and a lot more accurate than he was last year, which is also kind of hard to do when you're coming off an injury. So it sucks to say, but this could be over already. I just don't know how you can have any confidence or any sense that he's going to end up being like what you thought he was going to be, just given all the injuries. And then I guess you're kind of fishing for bottom of the barrel, talent. I guess. I mean, if you want to get like some fanfare and some intrigue and what's probably going to be a lost year, but as the weeks go, I find it hard to believe that Shedeur Sanders will be on the Browns roster next year, given the fact that they still have to. Deshaun Watson is contractually locked into a spot. Dylan Gabriel's I know Dylan Gabriel's not playing right now, but they did spend a lot more money on him, and then he's going to be a first-round pick. Shoot, Shedeur in Atlanta, that would be explosive it would make me want to vomit, but you would get, you get some intrigue, and you still probably get that top 3 pick you're going for in 2027. So I don't know. It's bleak. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Next year looks really bleak. It looks grim. You got to fire everyone. I don't know what you can do about the quarterback situation. And I'm just hoping that whoever they pick in 2027 is kind of like a Matt Ryan experience, where you're just right back off to the races, right? You're good immediately. You're competent. You're back to the playoff team. Because I see what these other fan bases are arguing about. We just talked about like Shador Sanders versus Dylan Gabriel. I'm like, you guys are arguing about this? I mean, the answer is neither. But I don't want to get into those realms where we're arguing about is a quarterback who lost to the Titans, or is a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel who's throwing for 2 yards a pass, I think the future of the franchise? Because it's no. And I don't want that here. I got spoiled to good quarterback life. You got 20 years of Vic and Ryan, and I need some semblance of that back. I mean, shoot, even Arthur Smith, like that 2022 season with Mariota was pretty fun. And also, us Arthur Smith defenders looking pretty good right now. So, that's another top 10 offense for Artie Boy in terms of points per drive, yards per drive. Hey, maybe he should have been given another chance. Maybe if he had Arthur Smith and Jeff Ulbrich, and don't let him touch the quarterback decisions. Let somebody else make decisions, not Terry either. Maybe me. We could have been somewhere.
Well, Charles, when you dip into Arthur Smith, revisionist history or whatever you want to call it, defense, that's where we're going to end the show. So,
dude, the offensive line just died randomly for a whole year with this, and then the same O-line coach that came back were good again that 2023 season. It was bad for us. But ultimately, he picked Ritter and Mariota and all those losers, so that's on him too. But I'm like, damn, if they just didn't let him pick the quarterback, I wonder where they would be.
That's where we're ending it, man.
That's how sad this is, though. That's how sad this is. Don't watch any Falcons game in 2026. Just red zone it, and hope that Bijan suffers an 18-week high ankle sprain, and then we're back to the races in 2027 with Archie Manny's grandson playing for the Falcons, and it's going to be hilarious. We're going to get there, but we just got to grit through this and just keep remembering, guys. This is year 5, Terry. Year 5. You don't have to support this. They haven't won anything. They're just it's so crazy because they are almost in the same spot that they were when they got here. You have no cap space. At least they had a first-round pick then. They use on Kyle Pitts, who they need to resign, by the way, if they can figure that out, because I cannot imagine how bad this offense is if you put in just a league average tight end into where he's playing. Like, the fact that people are down on him this year is crazy to me, because I know he's had some frustrating drops, but guys, go back and watch some of those targets that he was getting from Penix. Some Superman he was pulling down. Him and Drake. To lose him and not be able to replace him would be a huge loss. So I'm a little nervous because they took some big hacks this year. It failed really poorly. You're giving your first round pick to the Rams. That Week 17 Monday night game is going to be an all-time Falcons moment, because the Rams could lock in NFC West and a top 10 pick in the same game. And people are like, oh, well, why don't they move it? Because it's funny. Like, they're not going to move that. That's hilarious. People love laughing at the Falcons now. I like laughing at the Falcons now, but they need to get it right after this year. This is bad.
Okay. Well, Charles, it sounds like you're not a big enough believer in Oscar Delp saving the Falcons tight end room, but
I love him. I wish he played an offense out throwing the ball more. He would be a great compliment with Kyle Pitts next year. With Kyle Pitts, who they need to resign.
I want all Georgia players, no Florida players in the tight end room. All Georgia.
I fear Jalon Walker being good is going to make that worse for us, but no dogs.
Okay, Charles. Appreciate you sharing your insights in here. I'm sure the comments are going to go crazy for this one, like they did last time. But let the people know what you're working on, some of the stuff, where they can find your stuff, if they want to yell at you or praise you for saying truth to power.
If you want to yell at me, call me a sellout, say I'm not standing with my people, as people have been doing for the past month, because somehow, the idea that a guy who made a fake school and put a bunch of black kids in debt, and also is best friend, is also boys with Donald Trump, is like the epitome of blackness. I guess I can't be black anymore, since I said Shador's not playing well. I don't quite understand what's going on there. So if you want to yell at me about that, you can go to Football 301. We're on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you find us. making a whole lot of fan bases mad, and we have gotten a lot of apologies. I will say on the back end of the season, from a lot of fan base saying, "Oh, we're being a little bit too emotional." And yeah, you were, because guess what? There's 32 teams, and only like 4 of them are good. So the chances you're going to be happy at the end of the day is more likely than not. But yeah, come check us out, Football 301, wherever you get your podcast.
So, guys, that's going to be it. Thank you for all of you for checking out Locked On Falcons. Continue to check us out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out Charles on Football 301, wherever on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And tomorrow will be a crossover Thursday with Locked On Cardinals host Alex Clancy to preview this Week 16 matchup between the Falcons and Cardinals. And also check out the Everydayer Club. Since we're in the season of giving, give yourself or a friend the gift of the Everydayer Club, an ad-free version of the show, exclusive access to a Locked On Discord channel, Locked On merch store, exclusive access to Locked On Sports Today, the Locked On National Show. You can all find that information at lockedonfalcons.supercast.com or in the link in the description below. Continue to check out Locked On Falcons, check out Locked On NFL to get the scoop on the rest of the NFL's big stories around the league. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.